If you want to improve your times on Sardegna A's reverse layout for this week's Daily Race B in GT7, then this video might just help you out. Hi and welcome back for another Gran Turismo 7 lap guide. We're at Sardegna Road Track A and we're on the reverse layout in Group 3 cars on racing hard tyres. This is for this week's Daily Race B in Gran Turismo 7. We're doing a slightly different format for this lap guide. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Well, let's get on with the lap. Crossing the start line for our lap, and the first thing you're going to be looking out for on the right hand side are these signs, or the end of this curb on the right. It's not so much a braking marker as you're going to be lifting off, so you tend to turn in, lift off, and then get back on the power as soon as you can. Keep an eye on my accelerator bar just there to see what I'm doing. And I'll show you as we go round the corner. Lift off and back on the power. I'm aiming to get as close to this barrier on the right hand side without hitting it. It might take you a few goes just to get the feel of when you need to lift off and get the power back on. But don't hit the barrier. It's a really, really bad idea. As you can see, we've just skimmed past it. And we're looking out for our next braking marker, which is this gap in the fence. You'll see it a bit more as we get closer. Depending on how much speed you've carried through that corner, you either want to brake at the start of the gap or the end of the gap. Judge it based on the speed. You'll soon get a feel for it after a couple of laps. So we're slamming on the anchors, getting ready for this right-hander. Now you want to turn in a bit later than you expect for this one. It's very easy to clip that corner. You don't want to clip that corner because it'll probably spin the car out. And again, bad thing, so you don't want to do that. Turn in, you've got to be really gentle on the throttle here. It's quite slippy. As you can see, nice and quick on the power. And we're looking out for our next marker, which is generally the start of that barrier there. I tend to, well, it's not really a braking marker again. I change down and lift off. You can tap the brakes if you're having trouble getting around the corner, but I find if you change down and turn in, you can make it okay. But I start about there rather than right at the start of this barrier. So that's where I tend to lift off, and you'll see it happen on here. So I change down, turn in, back on the power. Again, you've got to be really careful not to hit this grass or this barrier. Totally bad idea yet again. It's all very much feel and judgment on these for the lift off. It's not as easy as just slamming the brakes up to a certain point. This is completely flat out round here. Keep it nice and tight to the corner. Right, this is quite a tricky one. There's a few different ways of doing this. I tend to hit the brakes a bit and change down there. You can actually hit the brakes harder at that point, but I'm not a big fan of that one. I tend to stick to just this first marker. So I tend to brake, turn in, and then I'm aiming to brake again once I hit the corner, just there. So you can see a little dab on the brakes and then really hit the brakes on that corner. Again, you've got to be really careful about clipping that. And this is a very slippy corner, so you've got to be super careful getting the power back on as you go round. You can change up to second if you want to help with the traction, or if you're really gentle on first, it does get you away from the corner slightly quicker. So as you can see, I'm pulling away in first. A little bit of wheel spin to slow me down slightly. And this section is all completely flat out. Keep on to the right hand side as you come round here. Now you've got to be careful on this corner. If you take it too wide, it will just spit you right out into the far barrier. So take a slightly wider line as you're coming down there, and then you want to get really close to this inside. You want to get really close to this inside barrier to make it round the bend without hitting the far side. As you can see, keep it really close. And then your next braking marker is this Marshall box on the left. Depending on, again, how much speed you've carried around the corner, I tend to brake towards the end of it. And I still make the following corner. So that's really when you want to slam on. But again, depending how you feel, if you're having trouble making it there, brake as soon as you hit that box. Slamming on the brakes. Keeping nice and tight to this. Now you've got to be careful when you get the power back on for this one. Keep nice and tight. Pretty much when you see this Marshall box, you can start to feed the power back in, but you've got to be careful. depending on how much speed you're carrying around this bend, it's very easy to go flying into that barrier on the far side. And as we've already discussed, hitting the barriers is a bad idea. Feeding the power on nice and smooth as we're coming up for our next braking marker. This is quite a tricky one. I often use this tree. There's a little gap, as you'll see as you go in. If you keep an eye on the right hand side, there's a little gap between the two trees. I tend to use that little gap. So it's after the first tree, before the second one, or if you want an easy one, just after you've gone past the 100 meter board. But generally before you hit these guys on the right. It's a tricky one. So you've really got to be careful. It's so easy to overshoot this one. So you want to get really tight to this. You want to get really tight to this corner because it'll help you out for the next bend. It's a really tight one. It takes a bit of judging. But you'll see I'll change up early to second and then up to third. So if you notice on the gear then, this corner round here is super slippy. You've got to be very careful. In second gear, it's very easy to spin out. Third gear, it's a little bit slower, but it really helps the traction. If you can make it smooth into third, even better. Get nice and tight into there, and you're keeping it in third all the way around this section. Right, coming around here, what I will tend to do is I'll lift off a bit when we get to there. Lift off a tiny bit. Or sometimes, depending on how much speed I'm carrying, you'll see it on the accelerator bar. This time I've pushed it a bit and I've lifted off when I've hit this curb on the left. So it depends what you want to do. It's either a little brake on that first one or lift off there. You were trying to keep nice and tight to this bend. So you want to get nice and tight to that in order to get a good run onto the final straight. So as I've come round there, I'm going to hit the brakes just there because I want to try and keep in a straightish line and a late turn in for that corner so I can get the power on quicker is the idea. So I've probably hugged it a bit too tight there. Now you can use all of this curb. It's not too slippy, it's quite grippy, but watch out for the gravel obviously. But use all the curb and it'll help the traction as well. Just get the power on nice and fast. And you're just going to complete your lap. Leave a like if you found it useful. I'll catch you in the next one.